Ready? Play.
Welcome back to another episode of Painting Lines. Last week, we kicked off the first Masters series on clay with Monte Carlo, and this week we continue the road to Roland Garros with a pair of 500s as we break down Barcelona and Munich. All right, Aiden, what shocked you more, Rune winning Barcelona or Zverev winning Munich? Because I can honestly say I didn't have either of these two slated to win anything this week.
100%. I'm on board with exactly what you just said. I would have been shocked to hear that either of them had won this if I was told that a week ago. But I think it is a little bit of a layered question just because I think if you told me before the tournament, I would probably be more surprised to hear that Zverev had won because Zverev has done nothing pretty much in the last like 3 months. So I wouldn't have necessarily expected this to just break him right out of his slump. I guess partially you can see it happening just because it is kind of is a home tournament for him. It's in Germany. But then also you go to Runa and you're like, okay, he just retired with like a physical issue in Monte Carlo. So that's obviously going against him. But he had shown flashes of high level play like earlier in the year, making that final in Indian Wells. So I think it's kind of a two-parter here where I would say if you told me before, I would say more shocked about Zverev. But once you got to like that final and it was Rune versus Alcaraz, I would have said Zverev is more likely to win and Rune more likely to lose.
Yeah, you brought up a good point about Zverev being in his home country, Germany. Do you think that really made that much of a difference? Because he has struggled so much this year, and then he plays a tournament in Germany and he wins it. Like it's got to mean something.
I think it has to probably be like the comfortability. I don't think the crowd actually plays that big of a role. I think it's
Hmm.
probably just like, okay, he probably got to go home. He probably got to maybe see some of his family and just, I think just being in your own country, like you experience this when you travel, I feel like is you go to a different country and everything's different. You go to a store, it's not as easy to interact with the cashier or the people, the employees working there. And then you come home and all of a sudden it's just regular. You just fit right back in. So that's got to be part of it, just being in a comfortable sort of lifestyle and setup being in Germany for him.
Yeah, it's like a home base. I get that. And
Exactly.
then just going back to Barcelona, we wanted to count out Runa so bad from not being part of this new big three, but he kind of proves us wrong here. He beats Alcaraz, which is a huge feat for him. I'm just wondering, do you think Runa has the potential now to be part of that big three where, he can obviously beat Alcaraz, he just did, but what about someone like Sinner? Do you think he has the capability to hang with those two, or is this just a fluke?
Oh, I think he's always had the potential. I think he's shown that he has a super high top level ability. It's just the inconsistency. I think I was going to mention this a little later, but I think with Alcaraz and Sinner, even though Alcaraz has that inconsistency where he sometimes loses to a shocking opponent, it comes in between a lot of highs. It's like you expect the reason we expect so much from Alcaraz is because he'll go into like 5 tournaments in a row and do really well, and then he'll lose randomly to a top
Hmm.
guy. Whereas with Runa, if you look at this year, for example, it's like, okay, he's lost very early in a lot of tournaments, and then in 2 tournaments, he's done really well. So it's just that consistency and whether he can mentally put it together and stay on the same level and kind of raise that floor of his play.
Yeah, that's a good point. We can talk about it more when we break down like the actual final, but let's just kick it off with Barcelona. So, with the exception of Musetti, who was seeded number 8, he had to withdraw because of injury, as I mentioned last week. All top 7 seeds made it through the round of 16. So we got Alcaraz, Rude, Tsitsipas, Rublev, Deminar, Runa, and Fils. All these guys through. Of course, round of 16, Rublev was the only seeded guy to go down, and he loses to Davidovich Fokina, who's honestly a respectable loss. Like, it was kind of a shock to me that Rublev even made it through the round of 32 to the round of 16, but to lose to Davidovich Fokina, I don't really blame him there. It's a good loss.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you look at how they've been performing this year. David has had a great year so far. Rublev pretty mediocre, and actually Rublev is gonna have a pretty big drop this week because obviously he won Madrid last year, and now he's
Hmm.
going to have to try to at least do decent to defend those points.
I know that's tough. That's tough, but into the quarters now. So this is exactly what you want as a tournament director. I mean, you basically have all the top seeds into the quarters.
And especially because of how the matchups worked out, it
Yeah.
was like there was one, it was Hachinov versus Davidovich Fokina that was like, okay, less, still great players, but less
hmm
maybe anticipated as the other ones. And then all of the other top seeds were left in the other matchups.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I feel like three out of the four matches were like sick seeded matches, and then yeah, Hachinov, Davidovich Fokina, still a good match, but not one that's like a headliner. I mean, so
Exactly.
but then again, these matches didn't really deliver. I feel like they had all the hype around them, but they just didn't really come through. Like first off, we had a Scandinavian rivalry, Runa versus Rude. I was really juiced up for this one. Obviously, I'm a Rude fan, but I just don't think it really lived up to it. Runa took care of business very easily, beat him 4-2, and he brings the head to head to 2-6 because Rude had a big, I guess, a better record than he did against, but there was still a rivalry because of the beef between them.
Yeah. And I also think, I mean, I wonder if Rude felt pressure given the fact that he was the defending champion here.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And also just after Rude loses, it's kind of like, all right, new champion. There's a lot to come up. There's someone who's got to fill his shoes.
Yeah, but yeah, I definitely agree. I think there's some level of rivalry there. I mean, famously, there was that handshake they had where
Mm,
Rude was kind of like shook his head at him because he's like, you got to show a little bit more respect after you lose. But I don't think it's that intensive beef. I just feel like it's almost the media creating a beef more.
yeah, that's true. I think there was remember there was kind of I don't know if it was UT what is it is it UTS that kind
Well, then
of
they have like the Scandinavian Challenge or whatever up
yeah,
there.
that's
Is
what it
that what you're
was. It was
talking
like a
about?
best out of three. Remember that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so Rune beat him there, but that doesn't count towards
yeah.
ATP
It's
or
like an
the head to head.
exhibition.
Yeah, exact exhibition. But then the next match was Tsitsipas Fils. This one was really underwhelming because it only lasted 6 minutes. I feel like
Yeah,
some of us last
it's like
longer
that
than that.
Mickelson versus Medvedev match in Indian Wells.
Yeah. I'm
You're like
like
they come
ready to
out and then
go,
everyone's
all
like, nope.
excited for it. Yeah, this one's unfortunate. Tsitsipas had to retire after 2 games due to a back injury, and this isn't the first time that he's retired because of his back, which is kind of scary because he's what, late 20s? Like the back injury is not something that is taken lightly. So hopefully this is just a precautionary thing where he's like, all right, I'm not going to push it and make it worse. Hopefully it's not as bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like that wrist injury. It's like you don't want to
hmm
make it worse and just never be able to really hit a ball again.
Right. And then last up, Deminar Alcaraz. This was almost the final last week in Monte Carlo. It only came down to a couple points when Alcaraz lost to when Deminar lost to Musetti. It easily could have been him facing Alcaraz in that final. But Alcaraz remains undefeated against Deminar. He beats him 7-5, 6-3. What do you think here? I mean, you're a Deminar fan. Did you think he had a chance?
And I think he had a chance. I think he has a chance in all these matchups, especially like I said last week. He looked so great in most of his matches, especially that obviously Dimitrov match, and he was a few points away, like you said, from beating Musetti. But it does to me kind of signal like, okay, this is probably how it would have gone last week too.
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
probably didn't matter who Alcaraz played in that final.
Yeah, I know. And it is so funny because Deminar is such a solid player, but just coming up against Alcaraz, I think he's like 0-4 against him, 0-5. Like it's tough.
Yeah, it's like that what we've talked about in the past, where sometimes someone like Runa, you're like, okay, even though he is very inconsistent, he has a better chance of beating Alcaraz because he has that like a more explosive style necessarily
hmm
than Deminar.
Yeah, I wonder what's more beneficial to be not as consistent but have the potential, someone like Runa, or be very consistent on tour but not have the most the highest potential, like Deminar.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at some like careers, right? I feel like Dimitrov is a great example of a guy that's like consistently been very solid throughout his
hmm
career. And but hasn't really ever done anything that crazy. I think he's won one Masters 1000, right?
Yeah.
And then who do you go on the opposite end of the spectrum? Like Del Potro? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
he's had really high highs, but in between those, he's struggled because of his injuries.
Hmm.
So, which career would you rather have? Is
Yeah, I guess it kind of depends on what you want. Like if your goal is to win, say one Grand Slam and then a couple titles, go for the potential. But if your goal is to be a top 10 player consistently for a decade, like go with the more, but not win a slam, go with the
yeah,
latter. It
it's
all
tough. It's
depends.
a tough
Yeah.
question, right?
Yeah. Like
It's
what
like,
what counts more?
would you rather be Derrick Rose in the NBA, or would you rather be like, I don't know, Domantas Sabonis?
Yeah. I have no clue who that is, but I get what
He's a
you're
guy that's
saying.
like a borderline all
I feel like
star for
that's
the
a great point
Sacramento
then. Yeah.
Kings. He's a
Uh-huh.
borderline all star for the Sacramento Kings. That's like one of the best defensive players in the league and has been in the NBA for however many years and has been one of the best players. But
Yeah.
Derrick Rose has the one MVP.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, moving on to the semifinals here in Barcelona. We got a rematch from last week. We saw Alcaraz face Fils. That was my match of the week last week. It was a great one, but this one just wasn't as exciting. Alcaraz beat him 2-4, and I don't know. I feel like at this point in the season, it may just be Fils kind of like being exhausted or not being able to hang as much. Like I don't think that Alcaraz is significantly better than Fils. I think Fils just kind of didn't play up to his level that day.
I think it's one of those things like which is the same thing with Runa, right? It's like Feast has his upswings and his downswings, right? So
Hmm.
maybe it's this was just a tournament he wasn't playing his best, and so that just happens.
Yeah, I wonder how often it happens where you play a player last week and then you play him again this week. Like, because you can have players who will be on tour together for 5 years and not play each other more than like two or three times.
Yeah, wasn't that the thing with like Giron and Tommy
Yeah,
Paul? Like they
yeah.
never played in like 8 years of being on tour, and then you
Wow.
have guys like actually guys I'm going to talk about later in Munich, Zverev and Griekspoor, where they've played each other 6 times in the last like little over a year.
Jeez. Yeah, that's funny. I mean, it pays off if you know how to play the guy and you're and you got the good record. But I don't know. I feel like Alcaraz, his team, his staff is so much better than everyone else's that they probably broke down everything about the Feast match and told him exactly what he needed to do to win.
Yeah, I think we've said that's a positive and a negative though, right? In the past, like Alcaraz maybe has a great team, but maybe sometimes he's a little bit too dependent on them.
Yeah,
Like
true.
for example, let's talk about this matchup that he has with Runa. I wonder if like you go into that matchup and Alcaraz says, okay, what do I need to do against Runa? And they say, okay, a lot of the time he struggles with this, a lot of the time he struggles with this. But then when Runa's playing well, he doesn't struggle with those things.
Yeah,
And all of a
yeah.
sudden, Alcaraz is looking at his box like, what do I do here? Our entire strategy is not working. And they're kind of
Hmm.
just sitting there, just, I don't know. He's playing well today.
Yeah, no, that's where your problem solving has to come alive and like you as a player needs to do it. It's not just up to your box because you can
Exactly.
only do so much. It's like it's up to the coaches to implement the strategy, but you still got to execute it. And then what's that saying? Is it Mike Tyson? Everyone's
Yeah.
got a plan until
Play
you
until
get
they get
punched in
punched
the
in the face.
face. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like as soon as that fight's going on, you
Hmm.
can't just be completely dependent on whatever your strategy was.
No, you cannot. And then on the other side of the semi, we got Runa. He handles Hatchinoff 3-2. I mean, I don't really have much to say here. Like Hatchinoff was kind of a dark horse
Yeah. I mean,
coming
I think
into
it's the
this.
best performance of the year for him. He's
Yeah.
doing decent. I mean, he's sitting where in like the mid 20s right now or something like that. Maybe the high teens. Not exactly sure of his ranking, but he's kind of fallen into that spot where he's very much just a guy where you're like, okay, he's gonna probably get a couple wins, but you don't expect that much from him.
Yeah, you pretty much nailed it right there. He's got the name recognition.
Exactly. Well, it's
That's
because
what
he
it
has
is.
that past of being a top 10 guy,
Mm-hmm.
but at this point, you're like, okay, where is he actually? I mean, same thing with someone like uh Hurkacz. Where's Hurkacz right now? Is he even in the top 30?
He's got to be just from last year.
right? But
Hmm.
you have something like that. You have someone like
Yeah,
Berrettini.
you couldn't
Berrettini is
tell
more
me.
of a
Yeah.
inconsistent sort of shows flashes player, but you look at these guys and you're like, okay, yeah, we recognize them. They were in the top 10 a few years ago. Now, do we expect that much from them? Probably not.
Yeah, it's funny when you say like Hurkacz and Berrettini, you can tell me that they're ranked number 17 or you can tell me that they're ranked number 32 and I'll believe both of them just as just as much as the other.
Exactly. I feel like to an extent, a lot of the rankings are really just like a range of what
Hmm.
you expect. Like if a guy's top five, you're like, he should be winning every single match pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then if a guy's like 20 to 40, you're like, he's probably going to win a couple rounds and then lose to a guy better than him.
Hmm. Right. Right. All right, now to the finals. We talked about this earlier, but Runa, he takes down Alcaraz 7-6, 6-2, and he gets back into the top 10 because it's been a while since he's been there, which, we kind of thought of Runa as being a top 10 player. At least I have, but then he hasn't been that for the last year. So I think right now it's up to him. All right, he broke into the top 10. Now he's just got to stay there, and it's up to him to do it.
100%. I mean, it is a big thing to obviously be a top 10 player in the world. And it's pretty impressive that he's been able to just stay that close when I feel like he hasn't had that many big performances. So he's just been stacking, I guess, the little wins.
Hmm.
And hopefully this can kind of boost him up to succeed more.
Yeah, he's young too. So, I mean, well, I think when we think of Runa, we think of him as young, but he broke out so early on in his career that he just kind of he has that reputation where he could be like the next big three, but then he's just got to live up to it. Like he had a high standard, a high bar, and I think now he like before he regressed to the mean, and now he's trying to like building back that standard.
I mean, I wonder if we'll see a similar thing with someone like Mensick, right? Mensick wins a
Dude.
Masters 1000, similar to what Runa did in Paris a few years ago.
Hmm.
And now Mensick, people are like, okay, this guy has won a Masters 1000. He played very well in that tournament.
He beat the
We have
GOAT.
he beat the goat. We have very high expectations for him, but then you can't expect him to do that every single tournament at
Hmm.
19.
Yeah. Yeah, well, how about we talk about Alcaraz now? I mean, like he played lights out this whole tournament, but then unfortunately in the finals, he kind of hit his limitation physically. Like he looked dead out there. He had to see the physio twice. Do you think this was more of Runa playing up, or do you think this was just Alcaraz being injured?
I think there's probably a combination. I think
Definitely.
if Runa wasn't playing well, Alcaraz probably would have just been able to struggle through it.
Hmm.
But it's I think when you're in that situation and you're hurting and you're losing, all of a sudden you start maybe getting a little bit more down on yourself and being like, oh, I need treatment, I need these things to help me out. Whereas when you're winning, you're maybe like, it doesn't matter that my leg hurts or whatever it is.
Yeah, it was hilarious. So I was walking into Easter Sunday Mass at around like 10 a.m. Eastern time, and I check my phone and I see Alcaraz is up a break in the first set, like right off the bat. And Runa's plus 800. I'm like, holy shit. Like, you got to be crazy to bet on Runa right now. Sit through the hour mass. I'm outside walking. I'm like, oh my God, Runa took the first set and has a break in the second. Like, what is going on here? So it's just crazy how quick a match can flip on a dime, just like that.
100%, 100%.
But honestly, credit to Alcaraz because he could have easily used his injury as an excuse when he was saying, like, yeah, I just didn't play well. My leg was hurting. I was exhausted. But he didn't do that. He gave all the credit to Runa. He said he played great all week. He basically admitted to being beaten by him, which I feel like a few players don't do that. Like they'll kind of just pick on the things like on why they lost, not why the opponent beat them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've seen that sometimes. I think when Sinner, for example, lost to Tsitsipas in Monte Carlo last year,
That was
it
such
was like
bullshit.
it was kind of BS that he lost to him, but I do think after that match he was kind of like, oh, there's these stupid things that happen. It's like Yeah,
Yeah,
but
move
you
on.
also just didn't win.
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel like if you're gonna make excuses about one call, you shouldn't be in that position anyway, right? Like if you're gonna beat someone out, right, that one call shouldn't make a difference.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
All right, let's touch on Munich here. So my thoughts here, even though this was an ATP 500 tournament, just like Barcelona, it felt like a lot lower tier as far as the talent level. I mean, like it's the first year that this tournament is a 500, 2025. But just listen to the top 8 seeds compared to the other ones. So Zverev, Shelton, FAA, Umber, Cerundolo, Mensik, and Shapovalov. There were no other top 10 ranked players except for Zverev.
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, especially when you, like you said, look at the other tournament and there's like 4 or 5 top 10 guys. So, yeah, definitely just a difficulty difference here. And I think it's partially just because there's the prestige in Barcelona,
Hmm.
because of its history of being a bigger tournament than Munich. I just think it's pretty insane to have that drop off when the points are the same.
Yeah, I know, I know. But where was Fonseca too? Like, I feel like he should be all over this. Kind of an ATP 500 with a lower talent level. Like this just has his name all over it,
Yeah, maybe.
right?
I don't know where he was.
Maybe he's chilling back in Brazil. But anyway, first round, Mensick, FA, and Chapo all fall, which, I'm not really surprised because look at Barcelona. You had all 7 seeds make it through the first round. Those are solid players. Now we look at Munich, those top 8 seeds, the, Mensick, FA, Chapo, they all lose. Are you surprised about this?
Yeah. I mean, kind of finishing off that example from earlier, it's like you look at the guys that are ranked 20 to 40 or so, and it's like, like I said, there's some guys where it's like, okay, maybe they'll win a couple rounds and then lose. And then there's other guys where the reason they're there is because they have great performances and terrible performances.
Mm,
And it's like, oh, they'll lose 5 first rounds in a row and then make a semifinal. And I think that's kind of what you see from like guys like FAA and Chapo, where they have tournaments like this. They're just out in the first round, and then maybe in a random tournament later on, they'll win 3 rounds and be in the quarters of a Masters 1000 or something like that. But despite this, I do think that FAA has honestly kind of recovered himself, because while he will fall in the rankings after dropping these points coming into Madrid, he's only down to number 26 in the live rankings. And I was talking all about it coming into this year, like he has to get a lot of points in these first few months, or he's going to fall into like the 40s.
hmm. Yeah.
And 26 honestly feels like a representative ranking for him. So,
You
honest, I got to
think?
give some sort of respect to that.
Interesting. Yeah. So when you said only down to 26, I was kind of shocked because what did he start at? Like number 4?
Uh, what do you mean?
Like so sorry, for the 2025 live rankings.
Oh, no, not for the 2020, just for 2020, the live rankings
Gotcha.
for
Just the
rolling
trailing, like,
rankings. Yeah.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And I don't know where exactly he is in the 2025 rankings right now.
Yeah, because remember he started off hot.
Yeah, exactly. But he
Hmm.
needed to kind of stay in a decent position.
Yeah, I know. Well, I don't know if you saw this, but the biggest story of first round Munich was Diego de Dura Palomero. This guy, he was the first player born in 2008 to win an ATP level match. This guy is 17 years old. And this is a great story because he was a lucky loser and he was like fourth on the list. And Monfils pulled out at the last second. Like I was reading an article, this guy, Diego, was sitting there waiting. And then he said he saw Monfils like walking by with the trainer and then just kind of was like, hey, at the last second, hey, buddy, you're in. Congratulations. He's like, let's go. Because he stayed in Munich. I feel like as a lucky loser, you kind of have to hang around the tournament, but it's a big risk because you could either wait and get in, or you're like, hey, I gotta go to the next tournament. I gotta play a challenger or something. So his waiting paid off, but that's only the beginning of the story. He gets a win over Shapovalov. Granted, it's a walkover. He wins the first set. Shapovalov has to retire, I think, like 2 games into the second set. And this kid just absolutely loses it, like celebrates to the max, like shakes Chapo's hand and then just goes ham, like makes a massive cross on the court, lays down on it. You would have thought this kid won Wimbledon the way he was celebrating. And he kind of got a lot of hate for it on social media. I personally don't care. Like, whatever. He's 17 years old. This is a big deal for him. He basically tripled his prize money like of his whole career. So I don't know if
Yeah.
you saw that, if you want to have a couple comments, but
I mean, I
I'm
just think it's
indifferent.
understandable. Like you said,
Yeah.
he's 17 years old. He just got his first ATP tour level win, which is something that a lot of players never do,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, you have guys that have probably played professional tennis for years and never actually won a tour level match.
Mm.
Like guys play on the Challenger Tour, they play on all these other lower levels, and they never win a match like this. And granted, it was a walkover, but he still won the first set, and he
Yeah.
was leading in the second set. Just because Shapovalov pulled out doesn't mean it isn't a win. And so I just think it's understandable.
Right. I just I want to know what was going on in Shapovalov's head like after he shook this guy's hand and he just started going berserk because I'm sure it was hilarious. But
Yeah.
then next round he got absolutely waxed by Zuzu Bergs 1-1. So
Yeah. Uh kind of under expected,
yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. I mean the kid's 17. Then we got the round of 16. Zverev and Shelton, they make it through to the quarters. Zverev beats Altmaier and Shelton beats Botic Van de Zandschulp, which you never know what he's going to do. I feel like since he beat Alcaraz at the US Open, this guy's just kind of got that like that reputation.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't have been surprised if Zverev lost at this point in the tournament, just the way he's been playing. Um,
Yeah. I mean, especially because Altmaier, I mean, he's had some big wins in the past.
right.
I mean, honestly, I say that and I can only think of the one, which is him beating Sinner at the French Open. But I'm sure he's beaten other guys. He's a solid player. So
I was gonna say he's also like the name recognition if he's been on tour for a bit, so
exactly,
wouldn't have been
exactly.
surprised. And then your boy, the headhunter, he beats Umber. Do you think this was a headhunt? Because Umber was the 4 seed, but I feel
Yeah.
like Morozhan, he's kind of he goes for the big names, you
Yeah. I
know?
mean, I mean, I think exactly like you said, it kind of depends how you rate Umber. It's like if you consider Umber to be actually a top 10, 15 level guy, yeah, I think it is
Hmm.
a headhunt. It's an add to the collection. Like, oh, Morojan beat all these guys. He also beat Umber.
Yeah.
But if you're kind of like, yeah, Umber sometimes plays well, but realistically, he's not that great. He's a top 20 guy or he's a top 25 guy, but not not a super threat at big tournaments. Maybe you don't rate it as big of a deal for Morojan.
Yeah, well said there. And then next up, we got the quarterfinals. These quarterfinal matches were definitely not as enticing as Barcelona. I think, in my opinion, the best match was Zverev and Griekspoor, just based off name recognition. And Zverev beat him 6-7, 7-6, 6-4. So it was a good match, too. And even though Zverev won this, I feel like if he lost, I would have been like, all right, that's a good loss, just because of the way Griekspoor has been playing.
Yeah, I mean, like I was talking about earlier, these guys have actually played 6 times since the start of 2024. And while Zverev has won 5 of them, this has consistently been a very close matchup. Like I was looking into it, and of the 6 times they've played, every single time there's at least been a tiebreak. And in 4 of them, they've split the sets, including
Wow.
at Roland Garros, where they split 2 sets each. So it's a very close back and forth matchup in terms of inside the matches, but Zverev has been just getting it done a little more often.
Hmm.
Actually, going into this one, I believe Griekspoor had won the previous matchup. So definitely it's one that feels very close.
Yeah, and this begs the question about Griekspoor on clay because the beginning of the season was on hard court, so I feel like you have Griekspoor playing well, maybe because he plays well on that surface. Like I don't know if he's as good of a player to excel on all surfaces, or if hard's just his kind of thing, and we may see him taper off in the clay, but
I mean,
who
if you
knows? I
see
mean, we'll see.
go based on last year, like I was saying, he played the Roland Garros finalist
Hmm.
and I think led at multiple points in that match and like probably should have won and should have beaten him.
Yeah.
So that shows that he has that high level on clay if he's playing well.
Yeah, no, I think Greek sport's still climbing. Like you don't think he's peaked, right? You think he's just kind of getting started or
I think I don't know about getting started, but I do think he is a guy that you can't discount in tournaments. You can't just look past him and be like, okay. For example, you don't have to say go into a tournament and be like, okay, yeah, Zverev is going to play him in the third round. I don't really have to watch that match
yeah.
because he's going to win.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like
not a given.
it's not a given exactly.
And then of the remaining players, we got Shelton, Morozhan, and Sarundalo making it through to the semis. So perfect segue into the semifinal. Zverev evades being headhunted. You wanted Morozhan to win. I know this. Tell me why.
I mean, pretty simple reasons. I like Morojan. I like talking
You
about
wanted
him.
to see an upset,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's not necessarily just seeing an upset though, because it is more about it specifically being Morojan getting it done. Uh, I think he's a fun player. I really like how aggressive he goes with his drop shots. Like he just throws them out there from the baseline, and you're like, that's just crazy to see. But overall, I just kind of enjoy seeing him succeed because he's such a random wild player.
Got it. So if it was another, let's say like a qualifier, someone who was unseeded playing Zverev, it
Let's
wouldn't have
say
been
it
as
was
much of a.
let's say it was Umber. It
No,
still would have been an
you
upset.
can't compare Umber and Marozsan though.
What about if it was Berrettini? Berrettini's number
No,
30.
no, no, no. What is Marozsan though?
What
Like
if it was say
60s?
this? Okay, if it was Goffin and Zverev,
No, 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 because Goffin was a top 10 player.
what? What is there
I'm
a good
saying
example?
yes, there's got to be.
Yeah, well,
Let's
if it was
see.
Yoshido Nishioka, I wouldn't have cared.
All right, there we go.
Yeah,
That was a good
sorry,
comp.
Nishioka, but
Yeah.
I had to come up with someone.
Oh man, that's funny. But yeah, and then Shelton, he impressed me because his win over Cerundolo, in my opinion, was not a given at all. Like I didn't really expect much from Ben Shelton this clay season just because of his first round loss in Monte Carlo last week. But granted, that was against Davidovich Fokina, so I feel like I shouldn't have ruled him out as quickly. Um, I don't know. What do you think? Were you pretty impressed with Shelton beating Cerundolo, or was that
Yeah,
expected for you?
I think we've talked about Sarundalo. He did
Yeah.
very solid in the hard court this year, but he is a very good clay player. So when you were looking at him, who he's been playing well, and you're looking at Shelton, who hasn't been playing super poorly, but he just isn't known as being like all Americans. You don't expect that much of them from
Hmm.
on clay. And
Yeah.
so I think going into this matchup, I was definitely leaning, if I was going to bet, leaning more towards Sarandolo. So impressive from Shelton, yeah, to get it done. But it's just another guy that, like we talked about last week, kind of fits the less expected sort of model of a clay player that we've talked about with Popper, with Berrettini, with uh, Struff, whether the big
Hmm.
servers, the big hitters, Pesci Pericard, that are still able to be relatively successful on clay.
Yeah, this was a strategic move for Shelton to play Munich instead of Barcelona too, because I don't think he's making the final in Barcelona. But here in Munich, I've same points. You might
Yeah,
as well.
exactly.
It's
A
very
lot of
good move.
points for
Yeah.
making the final here and gets to avoid like four top 10 guys.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, like you were saying about the big serve, I mean, that clay, his kick serve probably kicks like 7 feet up in the air. So
Yeah. It's always hilarious when they do hit a nice kick serve on clay and it like bounces over the other guy. And you're
yeah,
like,
I know.
just do that every time, dude.
Right, right. It's like kick serve as a first serve. Whoa.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right, to the finals. Happy birthday, Sasha Zverev. The guy turns 28. He wins the title in Munich, gets the hat trick. This is his third time winning here, and he wins a new BMW, which I don't know if you saw, but awesome moment because Dominic Thiem was the guy who drove out the BMW onto the court, and Zverev had no idea. So when he saw It was just like a big reunion. They had their little secret handshake. Just awesome to see like this. I don't know why Dominic Thiem was the guy to drive out the BMW here because he's not from Germany, but he may have won this tournament a few times.
Yeah, is this his third BMW?
It is, yeah.
He's
I
like,
feel like
I'm just gonna sell this car, guys. I don't really want it.
yeah, his other one from I want to say 2018 was like the sickest BMW because it was an i8. You know
Oh
the
yeah, like the
yeah,
sports
that one.
car, the
Yeah,
electric sports car.
this one looked like just kind of a regular sedan, like
Yeah,
nothing too crazy.
they're like, we kind of lost money on the i8. Let's go with
Yeah.
just like a regular car.
Yeah, they're like, times are tough. Tariffs,
Exactly,
I don't know
exactly,
how many cars are going to sell in the US. So
exactly.
yeah, this match had the potential to be a serve fest just with Shelton, Zverev, both guys known for being big servers and finishing points quickly. But it really wasn't. Zverev beat him 6-2, 6-4. And I thought Zverev did a great job of moving up in the court instead of just hanging back like he normally does. I felt like Shelton was the one who was, 6, 7 feet behind the baseline instead of Zverev.
Yeah, I think that probably has to do with just Zverev understanding, like, I've been here many times before, going out and taking the moment, and maybe Shelton being a little bit more passive.
Hmm. It is crazy though how Zverev could be so off and so on just depending on his serve, right? Like if he's serving well that day, he'll probably win the match. It doesn't even matter what he does otherwise. I don't even think he faced a break point in this final.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I've talked about this one in the past, but my favorite example of Zverev serving well and actually losing the match, but it being his only thing going for him was when he played Dimitrov in, I think, Miami of last year. And it was like Zverev was getting beaten every time the point was longer than like three shots,
Jeez.
but he still forced like three sets.
Oh my God. Yeah, he also said something that caught my attention in his speech. He congratulated Shelton and said that he was the first American in a long time to make a clay ATP 500 final. And I was like, whoa. I feel like you're congratulating someone on just making a final, not even winning it, and that's a big deal. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's
I mean,
like,
what's
oh,
Houston at 250?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I do.
Especially in Europe too. It's kind of I feel like European players just scoff at Americans who come over and play the European clay season. They're like, "Oh,
I,
I'm playing an American. Let's go."
I kind of agree with him though. It's like given the fact that there's like 10 Americans in the top 100, the fact that nobody is really that good on clay is kind of disappointing.
Yeah, it is. It really is. But honestly, this poses the question here. Like we kind of know Zverev had the potential to make a run at Roland Garros. We didn't know just because of the way he's been playing in the beginning of 2025 after the Australian Open. But what about Shelton? Do you think he is a threat at the French Open? Like, could he make a run?
Uh to make a run,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
What about to win it?
No. I don't think he has a chance really. I mean, not to shut it put it that bluntly, but it would be the most shocking thing I've seen in tennis in a long time if Shelton won the French Open.
What about Zverev?
No, I don't think it would be that shocking. I think
No, I'm saying,
obviously,
do you think Zverev could win the French Open?
yes, 100%. I mean, look at what he did last year. I think he just needs to be in the right mental state to be able to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, it just so happens that this was close enough to the French Open too. I feel like he kind of needed that. But if I would have asked you this 2 weeks ago, you would have said hell no.
No, yeah, 100%. I
It's
think
crazy.
this is a massive mental boost for him,
Yeah.
especially given the fact that he's been playing so mediocre recently.
I was gonna say, and a lot of people hate on Zverev just because of his personal life and the allegations, but I truly do think that tennis is better when Zverev is playing his best because he poses another challenge to the young guys, and he's kind of that old veteran that's still sticking around and could show that he's still there to hang. He needs
Yeah.
to win a slam. I feel like his career will always be a little tainted unless he wins a Grand Slam.
Yeah, it is kind of funny whenever you look at tennis and it's like the veterans of the sport are him and Medvedev and they're like late 20s
Yeah.
and you compare that to veterans in life, I guess.
Yeah, well, I
And it's
mean,
like the people that are like 50 and 60.
yeah, it's just people like Tsitsipas and Rude, I don't think are on the same level as Zverev and Medvedev right now. Like I think Zverev and Medvedev are the gatekeepers to that generation.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough with Medvedev because he's been kind of inconsistent recently. Same thing with Zverev, though, I guess, at the last outside of this. I think
Who do you
Rude
miss?
Rude is tough. He had some very high level performances. Same thing with Tsitsipas. I mean, I honestly think they're all very similar. I think that Zverev and Medvedev have achieved more though.
I got a question for you though. If you could pick Tsitsipas or Medvedev to be like in the top four right now, who would you pick? Would you
Easily
rather?
Medvedev.
You
Easily
think?
Medvedev.
You think? What?
Like in terms of what I would like to see,
Yeah.
yeah, I would much rather see Medvedev in the top four. I'm not a big Tsitsipas guy.
I know you're not, but
I
I
know
just
you're a fan of Tsitsipas, but I
yeah.
have no real uh sort of
Maybe I'm biased, but I respect the hell out of Medvedev and I think he's a great player, but watching him play is not as entertaining as watching Tsitsipas play. You got to admit that.
I agree. I think that Medvedev has kind of a an annoying style for people to play against, but I just like him way more. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I do miss Prime Medvedev when he was beating Alcaraz at the US Open. Like,
Exactly.
where was that guy? Bring him back.
Yeah, I mean, it was only a couple years ago.
Only. That's a
Yeah,
couple of years ago, man. A lot has changed.
it's true. It's true. But anyway, you ready to hop into segments here?
Yes, sir. Let's do it. Hey guys, before we jump in, we have some exciting news. We recently partnered with TruePro. They're a great place to buy strings, grips, and tennis apparel. Use discount code Painting Lines, that's one word, for 20% off store wide. You can find the link in our bio.
Sounds good. What's new in tennis? What'd you see this week?
Yeah, so I saw tennis players make a pretty big splash at the 2025 Laureus Sportsman of the Year Awards. So I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really know what this award ceremony was, but apparently it's a pretty big deal. It started in 2000. It's basically, for international sports and who was the most, I guess, the most talented person of the year. I know Djokovic, he's won this award 5 times. He was the one presenting the award this year. Nadal was there. He received a shout out. He's won it a couple times. Alcaraz was a nominee, and Tsitsipas was there in attendance. So the winner was not a tennis player. It was not Alcaraz. It was Armand Duplantis, who is a Swedish pole vaulter. He won gold in this past year's Olympics, but all in all, I think a great moment for tennis because they had great representation there. Like it really goes to show that tennis is an international sport, and these guys like Nadal, Djokovic, Alcaraz, even Tsitsipas just being there kind of showed that tennis is a worldwide sport and it's here to stay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of shocked that Djokovic has won it 5 times, given the fact that it sounds like it applies to a lot of different sports.
Hmm.
But yeah, cool to see that tennis players are getting that representation. I do think that Duplantis probably deserved it. I mean, he is maybe the greatest pole vaulter of all time.
Hmm.
So respect there. But yeah, definitely positive for tennis players to be getting their laurels here.
Yeah, man. What about you? What did you see this week?
So I saw actually a quote from Alcaraz where he said that 1 week Masters 1000 tournaments are, quote, better for tennis. And essentially, he feels that like the 2 week format just becomes a mental and physical drag on the players. Like, to me, the best example of this is like there's a reason that players, after they make a long run at a Grand Slam or like any major, they usually take a break for a couple weeks. They don't just immediately go out and necessarily play another tournament right after playing in the second week of a slam. But now we're asking these players to play in what is almost the same thing as a slam, right? Obviously, it's one step down at a Masters 1000 tournament. And then we're asking them to play it back to back, like 2 weeks in a row. I just think that's a big ask for a lot of these players. So I also wanted to kind of pose this question to you: like, what are your thoughts on these bigger tournaments and the extended draws that come with a 2 week Masters 1000 tournament?
Yeah, I think it's tough because I think the tournament directors have the players' best interests in mind. They're probably thinking, oh, we'll make it 2 weeks and the players can have more rest in between matches. But at the end of the day, a 1 week Masters 1000 versus a 2 week, like you can say that you're giving players more time off in between matches, but that doesn't really count as rest. I've heard players say that, when you're resting in between matches, it's not like you're going home for a week and like training and doing, other things. Like these aren't real rest days. You're probably just worried about the match. So it's hard to say. I think at the end of the day, they are more harmful, the 2 week Masters 1000s, but I think everyone's just trying to do what they can to try to help the players. It's just not working.
Yeah, no, I think Alcaraz kind of addressed that in his comment, which was kind of that is the mental part is massive. It's
Hmm.
like, yes, I may have a rest day after this match, but I can't go out and train really. I'm just trying to go out and like both physically recover, but also stay warm and good for the match tomorrow. Maybe I'll have a practice session, but you're so physically or mentally locked in rather on the next match. You're thinking about it the entire day. There's a lot of stress. And then you get another rest day after that. It's like, yeah, it's not really that much of a rest. Yes, you're not playing a match that day, but you're still feeling the uh, mid tournament feeling kind of. It's
Right.
different than maybe the couple days leading up to a tournament. It would be better to have those days to actually recover.
Yeah, I think it could be better described as it may be a rest day, but it's not an off day. And at the
Exactly.
end of the day,
Exactly.
players need off days. That's what gets you actually recovered.
Exactly. That's a great way of putting it.
But what was your bet of the week? Who are you taking?
I'm going with a one that's a little bit off the wall. I'm going with Benjamin Bonzi plus 220 over Marin Cilic. Uh, and this is one where it may feel a little bit crazy, especially because if you look at how they've been playing recently, Cilic has all the momentum. But I just think you have to consider the fact that Cilic has been playing in challenger tournaments. And when you look at someone like that, it's like, yes, he has confidence. He's been doing well in these tournaments, but I think you come back to the bigger stage that does impact how you play, probably. Obviously, Chilich has played on the biggest stages, but I do think that Bonzi is going to be coming out there something to prove after not necessarily playing great over his last few tournaments. And I think it's very much a match that could go either way. And so at plus 220, I'm liking those odds.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well said. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about Bonzi, but Chilich definitely an older player, and I agree with you. I think at plus 220, it could go either way, so you might as well go with the more value play.
Exactly, exactly. How about you?
I'm going with Kaboli, who is minus 105 over Morojan, aka your boy, aka the Hungarian headhunter. I think Morojan is a very spotty player, as we've pointed out multiple times. So my thought process is he did pretty well at Munich, so I think he'll fade out here in this tournament. I don't think he's sustaining, and Kabul is just the better player, so there's always that too.
I mean, I think it would be very on brand for him to beat Umber one week and then lose to Kaboli the next week.
Yeah, no, exactly. He does well one tournament, and then you don't hear about him for a couple weeks. So
Exactly.
I'm going over the old saying that history tends to repeat itself, you know.
Yeah. Then again, he might just like go on a tear this tournament. You never know.
Right,
It's the
exactly.
same
I think
exact.
Kabuli was on a fat losing streak too in the beginning of the year, but then he ended up winning a tournament recently. So I think he's also on the come up. Got to
Yeah.
factor that one in there.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how that one goes.
We shall
How about match
see.
of the week?
Match of the week, I went with some two guys that you don't really hear too much about most of the time. So I thought I'd give them a little shout out, but Kecmanovic and Jerome. So this was a dramatic match. I went with one of those. Three setter, second and third sets went to tie breaks, and the third set was a tense one too. So it was just your classic gritty clay match where both guys were grinding out points, playing tough defense. Kecmanovic had a match point, Jerome had a match point. You could just see it on the fans' faces, like how tense it was going back and forth. Kecmanovic eventually got it done. He won 11-9 in the third set tiebreaker, and he just looked so tired at the end of the match. It wasn't even like he was celebrating. He was just put his hand in his face and was like, "Oh my God, I cannot believe that just ended that way, but I'll take it."
Yeah, it's like when Dimitrov won that match and then had to be like helped off the court at Indian
Yeah,
Wells.
it was a sense of relief versus like happiness. It's
Exactly,
like I'm just
exactly.
happy I didn't lose. I'm not happy I won. Because you put
100%.
in all that and it just comes down to a couple points. Like it
Yeah.
is
That's what we always talk about. It's like tennis, it's like a few points determine how the match goes in the end.
exactly. So what about you? What was your match of the week?
I'm going to go kind of simple this week, and I'm taking Shelton coming back to beat Cerundolo. I mean, I think it's like, like we said earlier, always exciting to see an American do well on clay, but also exciting to see a guy go from the brink of losing to turn it around, get the win, and really just clutched up in that second set tiebreak. He was down a set, was obviously a few points away from losing the match. I think it got to like 6-6, maybe even 7-7 in that tiebreak before Shelton ended up taking it. And then actually was immediately broken in that third set, but stayed mentally strong, broke right back, and was able to get it done in that third set. So just a great job from him against a strong opponent.
Yeah, and I think he debuted his new celebration. You know how he always brings out the flair, the X factor. He did one that I did not recognize, but he got a
Yeah.
lot of, I don't even want to say hate, but just I guess commentary on social media. And he was like, "What? You guys never like seen that before? I think it's from a video game or
Yeah.
something,
No
something in
more
pop
cell phone.
culture." Yeah, no more cell phone. It's something else.
Yeah,
But
the funniest thing I've seen about Shelton's celebration was like that Djokovic hung up on that celebration forever. Like when
yeah, that's
Djokovic did it
true,
back to him, he
man.
never
Yeah.
did it again.
That is true. I think, but this is great though that tennis is now having celebrations because a couple guys have tried to do it in the past, like Tsitsipas with his little dance move. Remember? I think it was like a Fortnite dance or something. Medvedev beat him, did it like mockingly towards him. So I just feel like this this celebration that Shelton does will set up someone, whoever it is who plays him and beats him, will like mock him by doing his celebration at him, just like Djokovic did.
Yeah. Is that a good thing?
That is a great thing
Just good
because
for
it adds
drama.
spice. Yeah. All right, and that's the show. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Painting Lines Podcast. Feel free to shoot us a DM or email us any questions or thoughts at paintinglinespodcast@gmail.com.